Nationwide 90 FM, the station for the very latest in news and current affairs, will broadcast live the opening budget presentation by the Minister of Finance and the Public Service, the Honourable Favour Williams. On Tuesday, March 11, the Honourable Favour Williams will put forward the government's plans to finance the budget for 2025 to 2026. That's a live broadcast of Finance Minister the Honourable Favour Williams' opening budget presentation, Tuesday, March 11 from 3 p.m. to 5:30 p.m. on Nationwide 90 FM, the new revolution in media. Due to this live broadcast, the E-Zone will not be aired on Tuesday, March 11.
Do you have a consumer-related issue? Want to learn more about matters concerning you as a consumer? Well, keep it locked to Nationwide 90 FM for the Consumer Hour with me, Nora Gay Banton. Weekdays from 9 to 10 a.m. For all your consumer-centric matters, stay tuned to the Consumer Hour on Nationwide 90 FM, a revolution in media.
None of mercy. This one is very classic, dedicated to all the schoolers who are taking beats.
If you've ever struggled to pass an exam, then you'll know that students today are under great pressure to get good grades and secure qualification needed to move on to higher education. The problem is that too many students are struggling alone and could really benefit from connecting with hardworking teachers and other bright students in other parts of the country and the region. Join me, Dennis Brooks, this and every Friday evening from 8 to 9, with a repeat on Saturday morning from 8 to 9. For the A-Team, a study group on radio, my team of teachers, students, and experts will break down the syllabus, giving you information, tips, and past paper questions that will help you get top grades in your upcoming exams. Follow us on Facebook Live and on Twitter and be a part of the community. It's the A-Team. Fridays at 8 p.m. with a repeat at 8 o'clock on Saturday morning. It's your free extra class on radio and social media. And it's right here on Nationwide 90 FM, the revolution in media.
Me sing, boop, boop, boop. On every pressure, you're illiterate and foolish, you might on a cook, and you're not gonna get no.
Good evening, Jamaica, and welcome to another edition of the A-Team radio show. You are listening to the voice of Damon Scarlett. It is, of course, 5 minutes after the hour of 8 p.m. and many of you are on your way homes and just chillaxing. And I know a number of our students are enjoying their little midterm break. So tonight we are focusing on Cape Law in the first half of our show, and then a little later on we'll be switching the conversation to speak about the importance of quality teaching and teacher education in Jamaica. So you don't want to miss that conversation. And in the first half of the show, I am privileged to be joined by a senior lawyer, Casey, 34 years in this area of law. He is the managing partner of the law firm USIM Williams and Company. My guest this evening is Mr. Anthony Williams. He's a teacher of Cape Law at the Immaculate Conception High School, specializes in trial advocacy, and he'll be here to talk to us and to remind the students the importance of how to answer those examination questions well as we zone in on Module 2 of the syllabus, Module 2 and 3 specifically of CAPE Unit 1, especially criminal law and admin law. So good evening, Mr. Williams. How are you?
Good evening to you and to your listeners.
All right, thank you, sir. And I know it's been a busy day for you, but let's see how much we can get out of this conversation. But before we begin looking at aspects of the module, I'd love for you to put in context for our listeners why students need to learn the principles that govern law at this stage.
All right, so you're asking why students need to know the principles governing the law?
Yes.
Well, law is about principles. That's what law is about. Principles.
Mm-hmm.
Once you're going to do a law exam, it's not different from going into court. When a lawyer goes into court, the lawyer is going to argue and to state what are the applicable principles of law? What are the common law? What are the legislation? What is it that governs the situation in order for it to be resolved? Therefore, students are required to know each applicable principle that govern a particular situation. So, for example, if you're dealing with Module 3, for example, in Cape 1.
Yes.
That module deals with pure criminal law. Now, if a man is charged for murder and you get a question about murder, then the examiner is going to ask you, A, use a knife, stab B, whilst he was stabbed or during the course of his injury, he went to the hospital, there were some negligence in blood transfusion or other thing, he died from other causes and so forth. And so the examiner is going to ask you, is A liable for murder? You can have intervening causes that cause the deceased person's death. And if there are intervening causes, then you can't say that he's liable for murder if those intervening causes, for example, were the substantive cause of death. So students must know the principles of law. Otherwise, they'll go in the exam, they're going to ramble, and they're not going to answer the question that the examiner wants. So it's very, very important for them to know the principles.
All right. Thank you for laying that foundation, because I do know that there are many cases or case studies that they also have to look at as well as they
Yes.
Go into the syllabus. So let's
Right.
let's talk a little bit more about Module 2 before we get to Module 3. What is Module 2 really focusing on?
All right. So Module 2 really deals, and Module 2 I'm referring to for the benefit of the public, CAPE Unit 1. You have Unit 1, you have Unit 2. So CAPE Unit 1, Module 2, for example, deals with public policies and administrative law. That is what it primarily deals with. So it deals with the Constitution, for example, the supremacy of the Constitution.
Yes.
It deals with separation of powers. It deals with the role and function of a number of persons who are integral to the judicial process. So, examples, the role and function of the DPP,
Yes.
the role and function of the Ombudsman, the Attorney General, and the list goes on, the public defender. It also speaks about the jury system, which is critical to our jurisprudence.
Yes.
What are the advantages of the jury system? What are the disadvantages of the jury system? It speaks about as well the hierarchy of the courts. What are the hierarchy, meaning what are the various courts in the island of Jamaica and by extension the Caribbean? So students have to know the hierarchy, and what comes with the hierarchy is also a principle we call judicial precedent. So just to give an example, the highest court in the land of Jamaica is the Privy Council. Although it's not based here, but based in London, but the highest court
Yes.
is the Privy Council. But the highest court that is based in Jamaica is the Court of Appeal. And then below the Court of Appeal, you have the Supreme Court, and below the Supreme Court, you have the Resident Magistrates Court. And then you have the parish courts, the juvenile courts, and the various courts. So these are some of the things that Module 2, deals with. And another thing that Module 2 deals with is something that is actually very, very live and direct that is happening in Jamaica. And this is what is called judicial review.
Yeah.
Now, there's a very important case going on with the Prime Minister of Jamaica, the Most Honorable Andrew Holness, who has taken the Integrity Commission to court. And so he's asking the court to review certain decisions, actions of the Integrity Commission. Now, it is very, very important because as law students, and it doesn't matter whether they're going to pursue a career in law or not, it's just part of public knowledge. So even if they're not going to pursue law as a career, it helps them to understand this process.
Right.
So these are some of the things that students need to know, the judicial review process. Now, I must say that between CAPE Unit 1 and CAPE Unit 2, the Unit 2, to me, and I believe it can be corroborated that most students really prefer Unit 2. It's a more interesting unit, that deals with contract law and tort and negligence and illegality, real property, etc., etc., etc. But a lot of the students don't really fancy the CAPE 1, but the reality is you have to do CAPE 1 and CAPE 2 if you want to go out to the university to pursue law. So there are some interesting factors that we could discuss, with, judicial review, for example. And I would say to the students, for those pursuing CAPE Unit 1, that deals with Module 2, for judicial review, there are some key things that you need to know. And I will say it as follows. So they need to know against whom is judicial review made against.
Okay.
It is made against a public body, and the person must have locus standi. Locus standi meaning they must have the right to sue. They must have a good reason for suing. So any question you get on judicial review, there are some things that they must present to the examiner. So firstly, they must establish that the person has the legal right to sue. They must have standing. They must have an interest in the matter. So if we use the Prime Minister's case, he has an interest in the matter.
Yes.
You have an interest if you are directly affected by the decision of a public body. So you can't sue a private body. You can't sue a private body. You have to sue a public body.
All right, Mr. Will, I want you to just hold that point for us as we have to take our first break. And when we come back, we can pick up on that point as you're making there about the judicial review. This is the A-Team Radio Show. We'll be right back after this.
You're not gonna get no work, and your teeth like a puss. Send me granny with a purse. I eat you off the joke. If I see them, I hold your red and big tonight. You puke, we look and say. Guilty. Outperform, outlast. Guilty. We top performance. Guilty. Chakama. Reliable. Full stop. Not comma. We have the expertise for drilling and demolition. We have the power tools for plumbers and electricians. Fancy electrodes, free parts and free repairs. 3 parts, free repairs. 2 to 3 years. Guilty. Available at Delta Supply, 106 Hagley Park Road. Call us at 876-302-61114. Delta Supply. We service what we sell.
Tune in to the Design Studio from 1 to 3 p.m. and Outside with Pepita from 3 to 5 p.m. as we broadcast live from the Tasty Beat Roadshow at St. William Grant Park, Saturday, March 8th. Kick the Easter season off right with Tasty Cheese. The Tasty Beat Roadshow is covering 20 locations island-wide. Stay tuned. The excitement and deliciousness of Tasty Cheese could be coming to a location near you. Hop on the Tasty Beat Roadshow this Easter. So tune in to the Design Studio from 1 to 3 p.m. and Outside with Pepita from 3 to 5 p.m. It's the Tasty Beat Roadshow at St. William Grant Park. All this and more only on Nationwide 90 FM, the new revolution in media. This broadcast is brought to you by Dairy Industries Jamaica Limited.
Me sing, bup, bup, bup. Every pressure on no more. You illiterate and foolish, you might on a talk.
Welcome back to the A-Team Radio Show right here on Nationwide 90 FM. In this segment of the show, we are looking at CAPE Law and Unit 1, and my guest tonight is attorney at law. We have Sir Anthony Williams with us. Sir Williams, just before the break, we were talking about Module 2 as we're looking at the grounds to apply for judicial review, and you were explaining to us what the locus standi means in terms of that place of standing. So you're expounding on that, and you were looking at the reference that you made as it relates to the Prime Minister and that case. So can you pick up that point for us?
So a lot of the students, really don't like to deal with judicial review, and to me, not many law lecturers are actually lawyers, but you don't really have to be a lawyer to be a good lecturer. But the fact that I am a practicing attorney would make it easier. So what I would say to the students is that judicial review is one of the areas in Module 2 that they should really, really pay attention. Why? It's a very topical issue. It's a relevant issue. It's very common. And it's something that, it's just permeated in society. So in relation to the judicial review question, I would say to them, one, they must make sure that they have covered the fact that the person who is going to sue has the legal standing. Number two, they must make sure that in the problem, the defendant must be a public body. So they'll have to tell the examiner that the proper defendant in that question is a public body. It could be the ministry. Usually, the public body is a ministerial arm of government. And then also now you look to the grounds. This is where the bulk of the discussion comes now. The grounds. What are the grounds for judicial review?
Yes.
And the grounds are as follows in no particular order. Was it unreasonableness? Was it breach of the rules of natural justice? Was it a breach of legitimate expectation? And was it an unconstitutional act? Was it a breach of discretion? So all these are various grounds. So unconstitutionality, an illegal act, a breach of discretion, breach of natural justice,
yes,
and also a breach of legitimate expectation. So students, please ensure that you have the grounds. If you don't have the grounds, then you would not be answering the question, because you cannot ask the court for judicial review unless you say what the grounds are. What the grounds are. And then, most importantly now, you come to what we call the remedies. Any law paper you're answering, you have to state the remedy. And the remedy is really the solution, the answer. What is it you're asking for? And there are some known remedies.
For both public law and private law, right?
Oh, yes, for both public law and private law. That is correct.
Yes.
Both public law and private law. If somebody bucks you, for example, if a policeman bucks you, you can take it to court. Mm-hmm. You can claim assault. You can claim damages. If your neighbor lit a fire and the smoke or playing loud music, you want an injunction, you're claiming nuisance, somebody hit your car, any way you take it, you are claiming damages. That's the remedies.
Yes.
So for public law, they should know the 4 fundamental remedies. Again, no particular order. But the first one that they should really know is certiorari. I'll repeat it. It's certiorari. It's really an order.
A quashing order
that seeks to quash.
Yes.
So your key word in your response must be quash, not squash, but quash. Quash. So it's the Q without the S at the front. So
yes.
It's really a quashing order, and then you have mandamus, which is, and it's coming from the word mandatory. You're saying to the court, issue a mandatory order, a compulsory order, that the public body must not do certain things, right? You also have prohibition, and the word prohibition really means what it means, to prohibit. So You're asking the court that this person or the ministry should be prohibited from doing certain things. And then you have regular injunction, you have damages, and so forth. So in answering a judicial review question, you must know the grounds, you must know the remedies, and you must also have your cases. I always tell my students that when you're writing a law paper, you must let the examiner know you're writing a law paper. You must not go in the exam and write a chemistry paper, sociology, Spanish, or French paper. And what do I mean? It is a law exam, so you have to come with your cases. If you don't have any cases, you're really not writing a law exam. And there's a mistake, a common mistake that some students make. They say, oh, I read the question, but the examiner did not say side cases. Oh, no, you have made a terrible error. It's a mistake. The examiner is not going to, if the examiner says, oh, side cases, you're lucky. The examiner would often say, please advise A, please advise B. That's all they're going to say.
Yes.
Advising A and advising B don't mean that you're not going to cite cases. The examiner don't need to tell you to cite cases. You're doing a law paper. You're not doing a chemistry paper, bio, or
so that's
Spanish.
critical.
Right. So it's a given. All right? It's a given.
One other thing before you go on, Sir Williams, as you mentioned, I was looking at the point there about the another remedies. You mentioned the question order. What comes back to mind, because I'm not really the law person, but you can correct me here, in terms of a similar situation would have happened with the Privy Council, in terms of the murder conviction of Vybz Kartel when they had quashed that. Well,
yes.
Would that fall in that category?
No, it would not. All right, it would not fall in that category because it's not a judicial review.
Right.
But in criminal law, the Court of Appeal and the Privy Council would use the term quash. And quash means set aside.
Set aside, okay.
Set aside. So the word quash is also used in criminal law, but in public law, they use the term quash as well, really means to set aside a decision of a public body. So in the criminal law, the court would say the conviction of Mr. Vybz Kartel or Don Brown is quashed, meaning it is set aside.
Okay.
But that is a decision made by the jury or the judge. Now, in a judicial review, the certiorari is really to quash the decision of a public body or a public figure. It could be the minister or the ministry. And so certiorari is used in that sense, right? Okay?
Right, thanks for
that.
Yes, thanks for that clarification.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Sure, yes. Now, students should also have their cases beforehand. And how do you have your cases beforehand? In your preparation, you know you're going to have grounds. So you would have different cases for different grounds. So, for example, you have the case for breach of natural justice. The Prime Minister's case, for example, is a good case for them to use. In that case, they define what is judicial review. They also set out the grounds. They also set out the remedies. So you have some case like animistic case. Everybody should know the anismic case, the Padmore case, the Paddington test. Several cases, right? So you should have at least 2 cases for your grounds, okay? And set out those cases on your stock card or any sheet of paper, and you have them ready, right? So you have a brief summary of the case, and you're good to go. So the Caribbean Court of Justice, which is the CCJ and the Privy Council, that is another area that they should, focus on as well. They tend to ask, should the Caribbean Court of Justice be implemented? Should the Privy Council be abolished? Why should it be retained? All the more reason why students should pay some more attention to the CCJ and the Privy Council, because the Vybz Kartel case is a very perfect example and a live example of the fact that our local Court of Appeal refuses appeal. He went to the Privy Council. The Privy Council quashed the decision, so to speak. Well, the verdict, sent it back to the Court of Appeal for them to determine. And so persons would ask, what if we didn't have the Privy Council? Right? So they need to know what are the advantages of retaining the Privy Council? What are the advantages of having the CCJ? Now, this is a giveaway question, because you can, if you go on Google, for example, so many arguments, right? Just get your points. You can score a big grade 1 for that question alone, right? So, and the jury system. the advantages, the disadvantages. They should also know the types of challenges. Peremptory challenge, challenge for cause, right? The Jury Act. These are very, very easy. Now, I want to also go quickly to Module 3, again, for the listeners who are dealing with Unit 1. Module 3 is the criminal law aspect. Now, one of the areas of criminal law that is likely to come, when I say likely to come, normally comes, yeah, is defenses. There are several defenses. Again, there are no particular order. There's self-defense, there's provocation, there is intoxication, there is diminished responsibility, there is necessity, there is automatism. So these are the common primary defenses. And students should pay attention to the defenses. Now, before I get to the defenses, I must say, students, when you're going to answer a law question, get straight to the point. I always tell my students to reflect on the swimmers. When the swimmers are on the starting block, the starter said, "On your mark," and then the next thing he blow the whistle, and yes, they dive into the swimming pool. I'm encouraging students to dive into the answer. When you're answering a law question, especially if you're given a fact or a scenario, situation, students, please state the legal principle first. Say what the law is in the case. So if the case, for example, that deals with, let us deal with intoxication. You have voluntary intoxication and you have involuntary intoxication. So when you see the question, right away, you should pick up the issue. Before you state the law, you must identify the issue. What is the issue in the case?
Right.
I was at court years ago, and a judge asked, there were two women who were fighting over a man. The judge said to woman A, "What were you fighting over?" She said, "I'm fighting this woman over this man." So the judge said to the other lady, "So what are you fighting over?" She said, "I'm fighting this lady over this man." And then the judge said to the man, "So which of these two ladies is your lady?" He says, "None of them, Your Honor. None."
Yes.
The point is, he never had any issue. He doesn't have an issue. They have an issue. He doesn't have an issue. He says, none of them is my woman. And because he doesn't have an issue, he doesn't have an answer. I'm saying to the student, you must know what is the issue
yes,
in the case. No court decides any case without the issue. So identify your issues first and make sure you identify the issues properly. Once you identify the issues properly, then the next thing you state the law. And they all know about the IRAC rule. IRAC, I for issue, R for rule, which means the law, A stands for analysis, so you're going to analyze the case, and the C for conclusion. So you identify the issue quickly. That's one. And then number two is the R, which is the rule. So what is the law? What is the rule? What some students do is that they give examples of the case. And I'm saying, no, students, do not give the examples first. Say what the law is in relation to the case. So let us deal with intoxication, for example. There are several cases that deal with intoxication, some leading cases. You have DPP, Bird versus DPP. You have DPP versus Majewiski. You have the Queen versus Kingston. You have the Queen versus RD. You have the Galloway versus the Northern Attorney General for Northern Ireland. Those cases. So you say what the law is in the case. Having stated the law, you would have been diving into the swimming pool. Then now, you say what the facts of the case was briefly, what was the issue, and how did the court decide it. So what students are doing, they do the reverse. They say what the facts are, what the issue was, and then what was the conclusion. but they haven't said what the law.
And which is important because they need to mention.
So what is important, I say to the students, when you go in that exam, the examiner is going to say, you may start now. And one thing is for sure, the examiner is going to say, your time is up. I always say to my students, and for those listening, let the time finish with you stating the law. Never let the time run out with you on the law. Let the time run out with you on facts.
Right.
But don't let the time run out with you on the law, because it's a law paper, it's not a facts paper. It's a law paper. So let the time run out with you on stating the facts of the case. But don't let the time run out with you on the law. So get straight to the point and say what is or are the principles. Another thing I must say to students is that they must understand that the examiner is going to mark 300 papers or maybe 400 papers. It's a lot of papers.
Yes.
So let your language be interested. Your language, your choice of words must be interested. What do I mean by that? There are some leading cases that are established. So instead of saying, in the case of John versus Brown, or the Queen versus Brown, which established so-and-so, you may want to put it very nicely, right? In the quintessential case of John versus Brown, Lord Diplock eloquently and pellucidly stated the principle of law, which is, are you seeing the difference?
Yes, totally. And you put it just nicely for us just now.
Yeah, so, come on with a little nice thing. Let speak the law. The law is beautiful. The law is wonderful. So don't just put some dry coconut or some peas hard shelled in the paper. Come out nicely, man.
Yes.
In the seminal case of so-and-so, in the locus classicus case of so-and-so, right?
So using the terminologies, yes.
Yeah, the terminology, and there are some words, this principle that was stated in John Brown and Co. was espoused in the case of so-and-so. So you want the language to be used. So,
right.
So don't write a boring paper, right? So choose your language carefully.
I want to thank you for sharing those tips with us, Sir Williams, because I know I'm out of time for this segment, but we're definitely going to have you back for a part 2 of the conversation as we help our students, as you said, to learn the language. I'm also learning the language myself in terms of how we can write that and speak it, because it's very important, as you said, for them to know what they're doing and not to write a boring paper. As the examiners need to know that we are applying the principles that we're learning within the classroom so that we can get the maximum marks. I'm going to have to leave it there for tonight, but I want to say thank you so much for sharing with us, and definitely we're going to be having a part 2. There's so many current cases that we see happening in our country right now, and we need our students to be paying close attention to how the courts are handling those matters as well. So I want to say thank you so much, Sir Williams.
But just before you go, very quickly, very quickly, in 1 second or 3 seconds, I'm encouraging our students, please, to do 3 things in preparation for your exam.
Yes, go ahead.
The first thing they must do is read. The second thing they must do is read. And the third thing they must do is read.
All right, so we're reading all right through.
Yes.
All right, thank
because
you.
When you don't read, you can't write the law paper. All right?
All right, thank you, Sir Williams. My guest this evening in this segment of the show is Anthony Williams, managing partner of the law firm UCM Williams and Company, and a lecturer at the Immaculate Conception High School. This segment was focusing on Cape Law Unit 1. When we come back, we're going to be talking about teacher education in Jamaica. Soon come.
It's the weekend and the youth are taking over the airwaves. Yes, we are the new voices and faces of the Talk Up You radio show. The voice of the Jamaican youth right here on Nationwide 90 FM.
After a busy week of work and school, come on.
It's the weekend and the youth are taking over the airwaves. Yes, we are the new voices and faces of the Talk Up You radio show. The voice of the Jamaican youth right here on Nationwide 90 FM.
After a busy week of work and school, come on wine with Jamaica's #1 youth radio show.
We're bringing you entertainment, fun facts, and staying true to youth development and advocacy.
Catch the action each and every Saturday as we roll out buzzy segments. What say you?
Youth for chat,
life skills,
global connect, and Bust the Youth.
That's the Talk Up Youth radio show. Saturdays 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. on Nationwide 90 FM. Talk Up Youth, Miss Effie.
Talk Up Youth. Don't miss it.
It's undeniable that we should be together.
The true beauty of music is that it connects people. It carries a message. It speaks to you. It changes you. And that's exactly what we do just for you every Sunday as we take you to Urban Paradise, 9:10 a.m. to 11 a.m. Urban Paradise is our weekly musical journey that will serve up 110 glorious minutes of positive storytelling through music, mixed in with inspirational features to provoke thought and to heal the soul.
Like a dream come true, just wanna be with you.
So join me, Diane Ashton Smith, this and every Sunday, 9:10 a.m. to 11 a.m. here on Nationwide 90 FM, a revolution in media. Urban Paradise, opening our hearts, connecting to others.
Me sing, boop, boop, boop. On every pressure, no more. You're illiterate and foolish, you might on a cook.
Welcome back to the A-Team Radio Show right here on Nationwide at 90 FM. This is Damon Scarlett sitting in for Dennis Brooks. In the first half of our show there, we were focusing on Cape Caribbean, well, not Caribbean Studies. I'm used to looking at that. We were looking at Cape Law Unit 1. This evening, we're going to be turning our attention now to a conversation around the need for quality teachers and teaching within the education system. How do we get our teachers to maintain the standards that are required? How do we get the policymakers themselves to lift the standard? And so, as a part of our Vision 2030 goals, the Jamaica National Development Plan outlines specific goals for the education sector to contribute to the overall vision of making Jamaica a developed country by 2030. And a part of the goals includes looking at enhancing the quality of education, improving access, and ensure that the education system meets the need of the country's workforce and our citizens. Now, we do know that the Sustainable Development Goals talks to us about that, and we've been hearing conversations surrounding the Patterson Report, and I'm sure Minister of Education, that is something that the ministry continues to make reference to. So tonight, to help me to unpack this conversation for a few moments, we have with us Professor Charmaine Barrett, Deputy President and Provost at the University of Technology, and we have Dr. Hope Main, who is also Vice President of Teaching and Learning at the university as well. Welcome to the show. Professor and Doc, are you there?
Thank you for having us. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for having us.
All right, wonderful. Good to have you. All right, so we're talking about teacher education and this summit that we're going to be hearing about. But one of the things that I'd love for you to do as we start, can you just provide an overview of how you see the current state of teaching in Jamaica and just teacher well-being? Because sometimes we don't really think about the teachers' well-being. Maybe students don't even take them into consideration. How important is this?
Okay, I think I'll start, Dr. Main.
Yes, go ahead, Doc.
Well, for me, teacher well-being is absolutely important. And why is it important? Because of the important role of teachers to the teachers' teaching system, or to education, or to the development of a country and our country, as we are speaking specifically of Jamaica. And so, teacher well being, that is how the teacher feels about him or herself, about how the teacher feels that he's being cared for or she's being cared for, and whether they are able to manage the process. You know, sometimes some months ago, maybe call it a year, or maybe you would hear about teachers dying. You had a little spate with a number of teachers dying.
Yes.
That speaks to whether it speaks to teachers' well-being and how they felt that how they were responding to the environment in which they were operating. So teacher well-being is absolutely important because it impacts the teacher's ability to deliver and to engage with the students in the classroom.
All right, thank you for that, Dr. Professor, you're going to come in just now, I realize. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say that it is very important for us to really consider teacher well-being because they play a very important role in developing our children. And, you know, their well-being must be important for us for them to really develop the children in the ways that we want them to. This holistic development of our children is very important. And so the teacher must have good working conditions in order to do that.
Thank you for pointing that out. I remember having a conversation in a different show with our former minister of education, who is now over by the Ministry of Finance. And one of the things that Honorable Williams had spoken about was the importance for improving the working conditions of our teachers. Now, when you look across the island, and I know, for example, the UNESCO report would have given some global findings about, you know, teacher shortage, and that is a conversation that we continue to have in Jamaica in terms of how we can get more teachers within the system. From your vantage point, well, Professor, you can take this one. What are some of the most pressing challenges do you think teachers face in our country today?
I think many people would want me to jump and to say they are not being paid enough.
Yes.
But from my vantage point, this is how I am very passionate about the context in which the teacher works. And I believe that in too many of our schools, our teachers are functioning in less than adequate circumstances. And this is not just, it definitely speaks to the physical, but it's not just the physical. It's also speaking to the psychosocial context in which the teacher is operating. And I believe a big issue for teachers in Jamaica right now has to do with that. Does a teacher feel safe in their environment? And I'm talking about the environment with the students, not outsiders. Do they feel safe, physically safe, emotionally safe? And that's a big thing. And that's part of what pushed me to develop the idea of a summit looking at these issues, because I believe that much more attention needs to be given to the space in which the teacher operates.
Well, thanks for sharing that, because if you broaden that conversation about the psychosocial factors, that includes stress, anxiety, how to manage anger and to deal with those situations, because we don't want that to cause a ripple effect within the classroom setting. So it is really important for us to zone in on that. Sometimes we might not think that teachers have a life, and we have to care about them as well. It's beyond just teaching, and I know our teachers go over and beyond. And it is said, from I was even a young boy growing up, most of my time is spent was at school,
That's right.
Right, and it's spent with teachers. They become like our second parents and our family members, so pouring into them I can see the need for that. But as we continue to unpack the conversation, maybe Professor can come in here as we talk about that. Earlier on, we mentioned the whole matter of the need for decent salaries and compensation. How do we deal with that kind of narrative then? Passion versus income, if I can put it that way. How would we address that? The need for
Dr. May, take that one.
All right, Doc, you've been nominated.
I know that there are teachers out there that are very passionate about what they are doing. And it's really that passion that is driving them or pushing them in the classroom. It's not necessarily the compensation, right? So you know that, there are teachers out there complaining about the pay and that they can't afford this and they can't afford that. It's not livable, but they still remain in the classroom. And this is because that, teaching is about being committed to what you do as well. I've been a teacher for a very long time. I'm committed to what I do. I wouldn't say it's necessarily the salary that drives me. And as a teacher, it's not necessarily salary that drives them to come into the profession, but it's really loving children and what they do.
Yes. All right, so I want you to just hold that point there. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we'll pick up on the conversation. We're talking about the quality of teacher education in Jamaica. So we'll be right back after this.
Come into the parlor, there's a welcome there for you.
Welcome to the Mayor's Parlor with Desmond McKenzie.
From 1 to 6 p.m. every Sunday, you'll now get more of your favorite vintage music.
Put your head on my shoulder.
Nationwide 90 FM will transform your Sunday into a musical time machine that will take you way back.
Come with me. Let's go back in time.
This magic moment.
Journey into yesteryear with Desmond McKenzie in the Mayor's Parlor.
I've got the music to jog your memory and make you smile.
Put your sweet lips a little closer to the phone.
Sit back, relax, and enjoy the best in vintage music.
Come into the Mayor's Parlor every Sunday between 1 and 6 p.m. here on Nationwide 90 FM, a revolution in media.
Tune in to the Design Studio from 1 to 3 p.m. and Outside with Pepita from 3 to 5 p.m. as we broadcast live from the Tasty Beat Roadshow at St. William Grant Park, Saturday, March 8th. Kick the Easter season off right with Tasty Cheese. The Tasty Beat Roadshow is covering 20 locations island-wide. Stay tuned. The excitement and deliciousness of Tasty Cheese could be coming to a location near you. Hop on the Tasty Beat Roadshow this Easter. So, tune in to the Design Studio from 1 to 3 p.m. and Outside with Pepita from 3 to 5 p.m. It's the Tasty Beat Roadshow at St. William Grant Park. All this and more only on Nationwide 90 FM, the new revolution in media. This broadcast is brought to you by Dairy Industries Jamaica Limited.
Welcome back to the A-Team Radio Show. If you're just joining us, we're in the final segment of our show. We are speaking with Professor Charmaine Barrett and Dr. Hope Main. We're looking at the quality teaching in Jamaica, or teacher education in Jamaica. And just before the break, we were looking at the importance of teacher well-being and some of the working conditions that teachers have to face. Even though some of our students are even on holidays, teachers are also still working and have to deal with those conditions. And so one of the things that we want to look at now, Professor and Doc, we looked at the impact of teaching and learning. I know that sometimes when you look at the working conditions, for example, there might be overcrowded classrooms. Teachers might have multiple responsibilities. Sometimes teachers are carrying perhaps 2, 3, 4 courses and trying to balance life, right? What are some of the consequences that you think contribute to the overcrowded classrooms, and how can we improve some of those working conditions? And we know what the challenges are. How can we reach out to our stakeholders so that we can work at improving those conditions? Let me start with Dr. Hope.
Yes, so our teachers, well, I have been observing the classrooms out there, and I note that there are overcrowded classrooms. There are lack of resources as well, that teachers have to, as you say in Jamaica, turn your hand and make fashion in order to deliver their lessons. And this can be very challenging for them, because what will happen is that the teacher will have stress and burnout, because not only do they have to teach, they also have to deal with these contextual challenges or issues that we have in Jamaica in terms of indiscipline. How do we deal with that with large class sizes and teach at the same time when we are also required to follow the curriculum and deliver that curriculum? It can be very difficult, and this will cause the teacher to, some teachers might be inadequate in terms of what they are supposed to be delivering, but otherwise from that, I believe that some teachers really try to work with the conditions that they are facing, but it can impact their own personal lives as well.
Yes, and that's quite right. So thank you for that and highlighting that for us. Professor Abayath, in terms of the stakeholders, now we do know that a term that we'll hear ever so often is this whole need of collaboration, right? And so we do have policymakers from the government level, in terms of those who work within the ministry, the educators themselves. So how can policymakers, educators, and stakeholders work together to address challenges that face teachers in Jamaica?
I think it's a very good point to reflect on. And if you should talk to persons in education for a long time, and especially from maybe the ministry or so, they would say that policymakers and educators and other stakeholders have been working for a long time. And so I believe that what is needed is a strong commitment. And maybe it's first of all a recognition that some teachers are having a warm time. I think so that it's not just a conversation when policymakers and private sector persons and other members of society come together to look at education. I don't know if we have done that properly. We pull them together when we're doing things like the Patterson Report or a special project.
Yes.
But in terms of looking at the issue across the nation, investigating what's happening in schools and making a concerted effort, I think that's the very first thing that needs to be done. And we need to improve. This collaborative process should also aim to improve the infrastructure, the spaces that's. Have you ever been in some classrooms and you see it is hot?
Yeah.
Mosquitoes are eating up the teachers. We go to assess our student teachers out in the field. So we are out in the field, and you're dying for the time to finish for you to leave. But this teacher is having to come back the next hour, and the other hour, and the other hour. So there needs to be a concerted coming together to look at teacher well-being. A lot of times when we are looking in education, we are looking on the next methodology, whether it be we focusing on STEM or we want to emphasize TVET or it's math or it's English, but teacher well-being, we have not yet come together in a collaborative way to look at that. And I think the response to your question is that we must have that as the agenda item for this collaborative team to investigate and to come up with solutions.
And to come up with solutions. I want to thank you for that because, as we said, collaboration, partnership, and you quite rightly outlined that this is something that has been going on for quite some time in the sense that policymakers and how stakeholders continue to work together. So we do need to have that, brainstorming. I mean, I do know we have several task force, but we just really want to zone in. And what I'm hearing coming from both you, Dr. Hope, and also Professor Barrett, is that we would want to zone in more on helping to improve the conditions that our teachers work in. And if the conditions for the teachers improve, then their performance automatically improve. And you see more of, yes, you see the passion, but then you also get results. Because passion might be good, but you also want results as well, so that the education system can grow and we all benefit in that regard. So when the policymakers are making the policies, they eventually benefit, and when we look at it at our level, teachers will also benefit as well. And as we have pointed out, there are some stressful conditions, not only the working condition, but personal challenges that teachers also have to face, coming from the home and so on. And so therefore, helping to improve their lives, it's a balancing act. It's not easy. And I'm sure, I've had relatives in my family who have been educators. I know how stressful it can be, and the late nights that are spent. But I'm thankful that coming up, we're having this teacher summit, education summit, to also not only to bring greater awareness, but also for teachers, like-minded teachers, to feel that sense of community and the support that is there within the education sector. So let us tell it quickly, because I'm almost out of time now. When is the summit happening, and how can persons or teachers themselves be a part of it?
Okay, so the summit takes place on Wednesday of the coming week, and that's March 13, and we begin at 6 p.m. and it is online for our teachers. And so I can give you if I can read the meeting code. I've been trying to read it because I should have written it down. I think it's 975-3759 0700. So that, let me read that again, 975-3759 0700. That's your Zoom meeting ID, and the passcode is 112267. 112267.
Okay.
And that's it. So it's all online for our present. So it's a summit in which we have 6 panelists, and they will be face to face with us. But the
teachers
and a number of invited guests who we feel are specialists in the area too, because this summit, it will be under the theme Teacher Well-Being and Working Conditions, Catalysts for Quality Teaching. And so I think this is of interest to all teachers, every parish, and that's why we wanted to open it up so that we could all come. Because if we had it in our space on the campus, at UTech campus, we might not have everybody. But on the Zoom, we can get more people to join in.
I love that. Thank you so much, Dr. Hope Main, Vice President of Teaching and Learning, and also Professor Sherman Barrett, Deputy President and Provost at the university. And I'm so glad I was able to have this conversation. earlier on speaking to a teacher, and now we're talking to the stakeholders who are helping the teachers to become catalysts for change and to help to improve their working conditions. This is where I'll have to leave it for tonight. I also want to thank, of course, Attorney at Law Anthony Williams, who also lectures Cape Law at the Immaculate Conception High School, who joined us earlier in the show. This is where we leave it for tonight. Thank you so much to our listeners, our technical operator this evening, Andrew Anderson. And we will do it all over again next week, Friday. Have a great evening and a great weekend. Shalom.
Them no want no candy man, no Barbican, no brook. So big up all the youths a KC, Woolmers and Meadowbrook. Me look and me sing and say, you now go to school, go on the bench and no chair.
It's the weekend and the youth are taking over the airwaves. Yes, we are the new voices and faces of the Talk Up You radio show. The voice of the Jamaican youth right here on Nationwide 90 FM.
After a busy week of work and school, come and wine with Jamaica's #1 youth radio show.
We're bringing you entertainment, fun facts, and staying true to youth development and advocacy.
Catch the action each and every Saturday as we roll out buzzy segments. What say you?
Youth for chat,
life skills,
global connect, and Bust the Youth.
That's the Talk Up Youth radio show. Saturdays 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. on Nationwide 90 FM. Talk Up Youth, Miss Effie.
Talk Up Youth. Don't miss it.
It's undeniable that we should be together.
The true beauty of music is that it connects people. It carries a message. It speaks to you. It changes you. And that's exactly what we do just for you every Sunday as we take you to Urban Paradise, 9:10 a.m. to 11 a.m. Urban Paradise is our weekly